talk to you a little bit about some of the cool things that are going on at Brevard Zoo. Not just the aquarium, we will talk about that of course, but we also want to talk about some of the other bits as well. So, how many people were here in the community when Brevard Zoo started? Almost everybody. Wonderful. Brevard Zoo has one of the most amazing stories of any zoo on planet Earth that I know of. You talk about Bronx Zoo and San Diego and these places that have been around for such a long time, and they have these historic buildings that they brag about, and those stories are really neat. But ours is so much more special. Because Brevard Zoo and the East Coast Zoological Society, which is our nonprofit, we are not a county zoo, we are not part of the government, we are an independent nonprofit that was started by the community, right? It was a group of people that wanted a space for conservation and education and nature that would be there for generations. And they gathered so much excitement and energy that they got the land donated. Community built zoo in the world. Largest sounds better, so we stick with it though, right? Either way, an amazing project. And you can still see that community attachment to the zoo today. We have almost 500 volunteers at the zoo. Most zoos our size are lucky if they have 200 or 250. We have 500, and it's because of how much this community cares about the zoo. And the zoo has done an amazing job of connecting people and keeping people connected over the years with us as well. Our big black bears that have come to us, Brody and Betty. Brody came to us as a tiny little bear cub. He had pneumonia. He couldn't actually drink from a bottle, so he'd been abandoned by mom. He had hip dysplasia like dogs get, and he was never going to be able to survive as a wild baby bear. But our team cared for him. The community helped pay for the stem cell therapy and other hip treatments that he needed, and he now weighs 375 pounds and can climb a pine tree in the snap of a finger. And he's fantastic, and we love him very much. These two little spider monkeys, Mateo and Jay. Anybody familiar with their stories? Mateo was confiscated. He was the first of the two. Confiscated, being smuggled into Texas from Mexico. Destined for the pet trade. We like to think that animal smuggling happens in third world countries, right? It happens right here in the United States every single day. Luckily, he was found. And we were able to bring him to the zoo so that we could care for him and get him into a troop of spider monkeys so that he could be a spider monkey. And he now lives with our troop. 2 years later, same situation. Little Jay was found being smuggled into the United States. And since we'd had success with one, they said, hey, we're sending this one to you too. Both are now members of our troop and doing great with our other spider monkeys. So, again, we answer the call. When people come to us with problems, we try and help. And if we can, we will. Dropped off in our laps. Betty, she was healthy.
Betty.
She was perfect. Yes, Betty Bear is her name.
Betty.
We got a Brody, that's Evelyn's puppy, and we got our
Well, that's fantastic. Brody and Betty, right here.
And we love them both.
Well, wonderful. We love all of our Brodies and Bettys.
That there was a beginning attempts for this, and it's lovely now the conclusion. We're actually from our Riverboat tour now hearing about you guys that spearheaded that, so that's really exciting for us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's come full circle.
Absolutely, and because it is, I mean, it has continued to grow, and it is continuing to grow. I mean, so far, this team, our Restore Shores team, with community volunteers, have rebuilt almost 2 miles of oyster reefs throughout the lagoon. Mostly here in Brevard County, but also down into Indian River County as well. And there are other organizations doing the same. We are not the only ones working on this restoration work. Whether it's oysters or mangroves or seagrass and clams, last year we planted 8 million tiny baby clams back into the lagoon. And you would be amazed at how small of a bag you can fit 500,000 clams when they're only the size of your pinky nail. It blew me away when I saw it. Because we need all of those organisms back there. More importantly, it's on the edge of the river. Because if we want to help protect the river, we need to connect people with it. We need people to see it and understand what has changed and why it's so important to fix it. So, amazing location. But usually when we show this picture, the first question we get is, where's the aquarium? Because when we think of an aquarium, we think of just a big building, standing in the dark, looking through glass at a bunch of fish. That's a regular aquarium. It's not a Brevard Zoo aquarium. We've got zip lines over crocodiles. We kayak past rhinos. You're not going to stand in the dark all day and stare at fish at a Brevard Zoo aquarium. We want you outside. We want to immerse people in the environment we're trying to protect. And so this entire campus is all different experiences designed to connect people with this environment. Amazing sea turtle hospital at the zoo. But just like our beach mice and just like our grasshopper sparrows, it's behind the scenes because it was built 20 years after the zoo. Our new sea turtle hospital will actually be built so that people can see it. So we'll be able to help more turtles, and people will actually be able to see the work that's going on. So they can see those small tanks where the sick turtles are. They can see the procedure room where the vets are actually working and caring for the turtles. And then we'll have a beautiful large space here where turtles that don't need to be confined to those small spaces, turtles that can safely navigate a large home, can live until they're ready for release. And people can see them and connect with them. Because that's how we get people to care, by creating those connections. Locks exhibit. If you were to jump into the water in the locks, jump off your cruise ship, please don't do that. This is what you would see underwater. Huge schools of game fish. And when you ask anglers why those fish are there, they say it's because we're not allowed to fish for them. That's not true. Those fish live in this space because of all of this structure. The posts and the beams create habitat for their food. And this is an amazing place to tell the story that when we build things, we can create habitat for animals. It is very possible for us to coexist with the animals around us. We just have to think about things when we build. And so this will be that place where you can be in the dark. You can get that cozy aquarium experience. Be in the air conditioning for a little while. Play with a water table down here. There will be a working model of the locks so that kids and adults can learn how that water level goes up and down and how we can bring these huge cruise ships into what is now the busiest cruise port in the world, which is pretty exciting, right? Officially changed from Miami. We are now the busiest and largest cruise port in the world, which is pretty cool. Outside again, because we're trying to immerse you in the environment, right? And so here, we're taking a lesson from our kangaroo yard. How many people have been through the kangaroo exhibit at the kangaroo yard? The reason we have to tell you not to touch the animals is because in that space, we don't control the kangaroos. We control the people. And we're going to do the same thing with our stingray exhibit. And you'll have a shallow path that you can go through, big deep sides where the stingrays can stay, but the stingrays can come up over the path. We'll have guardrails, and we'll actually have wheelchairs that can go through that salt water as well, so that anybody who can transfer that needs that support can still go through that experience if they want to. Because remember, we want people to feel like they're part of the environment and connect with those animals. And this is an amazing way to do that. But if you don't want to get your feet wet or your wheels wet, you don't have to. There will be time in there. That would be really cool. But then we decided that wasn't fair for the stingrays. If people are coming through that space that much, they get the rest of the space to themselves. Because for us, animal welfare comes first. Our animals are our most important asset, and we need to care for them and give them the best lives we can. The only thing that comes above animal welfare is human safety. So everything that we do, we also ensure is safe for our guests, right? So we'll have stingrays, we'll have sharks, we'll have tarpon, we'll have all of these amazing fish. Yes, ma'am.
Does the stingray have a stinger on the end of it? So how do you protect them from the people?
Great question. So there are a couple of different ways that we can ensure that this is safe. And it depends on the types of stingrays that we use. If we use Atlantic stingrays and southern stingrays, which are the ones that we have at the Brevard Zoo now, if you've seen our stingrays before, they do have stingers, and our vets actually trim those barbs. And they do it under anesthesia, so they move those stingrays into a medicated pool, because when you need to medicate fish, you medicate the water, right? You can't put a gas mask on them because they don't breathe air, so you medicate the water, because that's how they breathe. and they fall asleep, and then we can trim that barb to ensure that when our staff goes in there, they're safe. And so we can use that tactic here, and we can also use types of stingrays that don't have barbs. And that's important, because we want wildlife and people to thrive, right? That's important for us. Now, we will also be building another manatee care center. I mentioned we'll be building space at the zoo for them, and it won't be critical care. This one will be. At the new aquarium, we will have 2 critical care spaces for manatees that have a graded hydraulic floor where you can actually, like this floor here, lift those manatees right up out of the water with the floor so that you can draw blood. You can give them fluids. You can medicate them. Because doing that in the water would be very difficult and potentially dangerous. They might be slow, but they're big. And if you get squished between a manatee and the wall of that tank, you're in trouble. So we can gently raise them and then lower them back down. If we have one that is so sick it can't come to the surface for air, we can control the depth so that that manatee is safe. We have great rehab programs. We will also be continuing the education work that we do at the zoo and doing more of it, because we get to build more classrooms. And that means we get to do more work with our schools and with our homeschool groups and our students are in the entire region. And we'll have laboratories set up so that they can learn how water quality works and how to test these things. And these will be professional level laboratories so that visiting researchers from other universities and other groups have a place right there at the port that they can use too. And we're already getting requests from universities and research groups asking for access to this space. We know that it's needed. And what is so cool about that is that not only can these researchers who are coming from anywhere have a free space to work, while they're working in the lab, maybe you have a group of high school students also working in that lab. And they get to see this person and say, hey, this is a real job. These are real people. And all of a sudden, marine biologists and conservation work becomes a much more real possibility for these students.